He laughed at the shoes. That worn-out pair Thomas had worn every day for years. He pointed, whispered to his friends, "Look at the janitor. Who even wears shoes like that?" No one imagined that the man he mocked would one day hold the power to change everything. That moment of ridicule would become the beginning of a lesson he'd never forget, and a story that would shake the office to its core. Visual, close-up of scuffed shoes, sunlight reflecting off polished office floors. The camera pans to Thomas quietly sweeping the corridor. Unaware of the whispers around him, the office was a cathedral of ambition. Polished marble, glass walls reflecting the harsh fluorescent light, and people in tailored suits moving with precision. Yet among all this, one man went unnoticed: Thomas, the janitor. His uniform was simple, his shoes old, but he moved with purpose, carrying more dignity than many executives. Harrison, mocking, loud, "Thomas, are those shoes from the Stone Age? Honestly, how do you even walk in those things?" The laughter that followed could have crushed anyone. But Thomas didn't flinch. He nodded politely, continued sweeping, letting their words slide off like water on waxed floors. He understood something Harrison never would. Patience and composure are silent weapons. Thomas wasn't always a janitor. 10 years ago, he had dreams, big ones. Dreams that had been crushed by circumstances, bills, and family obligations. He had studied business in college, but a family tragedy forced him to put his education on hold. His father had fallen ill, and the hospital bills drained every bit of savings. Thomas took the janitorial job to support his younger sister and mother, not out of weakness, but out of responsibility. Every night, after the office lights dimmed, Thomas studied again. He read business journals, financial reports, and management books. He started small investments, helped friends in need, and quietly built knowledge and skill that no one in the office would ever suspect. Every polish, every sweep of the mop was a meditation, a preparation for the life he would reclaim. Visual, Thomas at night, studying by a dim lamp, scribbling notes, and tracking investments. On the other side, Harrison was born into privilege. He had charm, confidence, and a sharp mind, but arrogance ran deep. Mocking others gave him power, and every laugh from the office staff fueled his ego. Yet beneath it, there was insecurity he'd never admit. The fear that without his title, without the polished shoes and expensive suits, he was nothing. This fear made him cruel, even to those like Thomas, whose quiet strength threatened to expose Harrison's fragility. Visual, Harrison in a fancy office, laughing with colleagues at someone's expense. Quick flashes show glimpses of his childhood, alone, ignored by busy parents, craving approval. While Harrison mocked, Thomas quietly invested, mentored, and built. He helped a young entrepreneur secure funding, coached local businesses, and even contributed anonymously to community shelters. Every small action compounded, creating a network of influence and impact far beyond the office walls. And yet, he never sought recognition. One day, Thomas received an email that made him pause mid-sweep. The young entrepreneur he had mentored had successfully raised millions and offered Thomas a major stake in a company, the very company Harrison ruled with arrogance. Suddenly, the janitor was no longer invisible. He had power, influence, and a story that could humble even the proudest man. Visual, Thomas staring at the email, a small smile forming as he folds his mop handle. Harrison remained oblivious, confident in his supremacy. He continued mocking, flaunting wealth, belittling employees. But the whispers started, growing louder. The board noticed unusual activity. Shareholders demanded meetings, and Thomas's influence began reshaping the company from the shadows. The day came when Harrison called a meeting, unaware that Thomas would be at the head of the table as a significant stakeholder. The room was tense. Employees held their breath. Harrison smirked, ready to assert dominance. But Thomas didn't need to threaten. He simply spoke, calmly, with knowledge and authority. The power of patience, humility, and preparation spoke louder than any insult ever could. Visual, tense boardroom. Harrison's confident posture begins to falter as whispers of Thomas's achievements circulate. Harrison looked at Thomas, finally seeing what he had ignored all these years. The worn shoes still existed, yes, but they walked with quiet confidence, carrying a man who had mastered what Harrison never could: integrity, intelligence, and unshakable patience. The board explained Thomas's stake, his achievements outside the office, and his power to influence the company's future. Harrison was speechless. Harrison, stammering, humbled, I had no idea. I was wrong. The room held its breath. Thomas, who could have relished this moment, instead offered guidance. He extended respect, not ridicule. And in that act, he taught Harrison a lesson no corporate seminar ever could. True strength lies in humility, patience, and forgiveness. Over the following months, Harrison began to change. He learned respect, the value of kindness, and how to uplift others instead of crushing them. The office transformed. Employees were seen, valued, and empowered. And Thomas? He continued his work, quietly shaping lives, mentoring, and sweeping floors with the same calm dignity that had always defined him. The worn-out shoes became a symbol, not of weakness, but of resilience, of quiet preparation, of patience that could withstand mockery, indifference, and ridicule. And the man who was mocked became the one who taught the boss, and everyone watching, the true meaning of respect, dignity, and grace.